For your TCP/IP over GPRS applications, you'll need the server and a client. Servers have to be able to provide public IP addresses in order to be addressable on the Internet, while the client makes TCP connection also when provided with a private IP address. Few words on this private versus public IP addresses. Any instance in Internet, has to have a unique address in order to be reachable. There are, however, many other instances on the same Internet connected via some IP addresses that are not unique. They are then members of so-called private networks and reaching Internet network using kind of gateway, router. This router has the unique IP address and has kind of an info table used to redirect the traffic to the specific instance within the private network. There is an agreement about which addresses are to be used as private, so the private IP address ranges reserved for private networks according to requests for comments RFC 1918 and referring to the IPv4 world are those addresses starting with following numbers as presented on the slide. For instance, addresses starting with 10. This has been assigned by the Internet Assigned Numbers Authority that controls ownership of these IP ranges and assigns IP address blocks to organizations such as Internet Service Providers, who in turn allocate individual IP addresses to customers. This means that for your application you have to plan first how many servers you would need for TCP socket connection. Then you need to plan to ask for a special kind of SIM card for those servers to be. In other words, you have to ask for a special kind of contract with your provider where you'll be guaranteed to get the public IP address. This could be one and only address you are assigned each time you start your server, so-called fixed public IP address, but sometimes this is one of several public IP addresses taken out of the public IP address pool. Either one version serves well for purpose of setting the TCP server with Quectel GSM module. It may be that your application requires the fixed one, the fixed IP address, and this is all the part that has to be clarified with your SIM card provider. As anticipated, SIM cards assigning public IP addresses or domains are usually more expensive than others, for your provider has to pay for this address or domain too. You can also let us know and help you to find the right deal for the SIM card provider for you, depending on the traffic you plan to generate in your application. If you ever start doing some application that is relying on the GPRS data service, stands for General Packet Radio Service, and you believe you adjusted all well but still facing problems in starting TCP, for instance, then it could be that you made the same mistake as I did, which took me a few hours some time ago. I did not activate PDP context. In order to establish a TCP/IP socket connection between a device connected and using GPRS, you'll need to activate PDP context. As said, GPRS, originally introduced by ETSI, is a packet radio service. When packet arrives from the public packet data network, it is directed to a specific address, which is to be feasible by activating the PDP context. GPRS system supports IP network layers protocol. Therefore, PDP address in that case is an IP address. If the connection is closed by remote end of network or the PDP context is deactivated during data transferring, the module will switch to command mode automatically, where the packet will simply be discarded. The solution is simple. You need to know the APN and user and password if provided. Looking at the AT command, one sets GPRS and the bearer for TCP/IP connection. Simple as can be and can save you much time. Sometimes is provider's gateway set up to terminate the connection you have established if connection is not active. Supposing you need this connection, even though you do not use it all the time, or assuming no data is needed to be sent for a long time, you'll need a solution. In order to avoid a TCP connection from disconnecting by GPRS gateway without any notification, it is recommended to periodically send a small data packet to maintain the TCP connection. So, in order to keep the link up, you'll need to send so-called heartbeat packages, say every 10 minutes. The procedure explaining this is provided in documentation related to the TCP connection best practices. Suggested is to test first if the current TCP connection is normal by querying whether the current package has been sent successfully, then sending either the data or a heartbeat package. This was all I planned for today. I hope you've heard some info useful for your application. Now is the time to ask your questions. Feel free to write and to ask in German as well. You can use our chat box to write them. You see my contact data provided. You can use also my contact data on this last slide. If I can handle your questions now, we have a few more minutes. I can answer. In any case, you'll get answers per mail. I'm leaving you with this info and encouraging to use the contact data you see. On your left-hand side are contacts of the line manager for Quectel in our company, and on the right-hand side, as said, my contact data. This presentation will be sent to you using those email